for myself, I'm very happy that it's me.
Thank you very much, Morena. He'll be back with more from the world of sports after 8. Now, as unemployment continues to increase, government has been criticized for not doing enough to address the deepening crisis. The Center for Development and Enterprise, that's CDE, has released a new report calling on the government to adopt essential reforms to address joblessness. The unemployment rate sits at a disastrous 33.2%, with a staggering 46% youth unemployment rate. Ann Bernstein from the Center for Development Enterprise joins us now. Ann, very good morning. Welcome to the South African Morning. The deepening unemployment crisis gets a very, very sharp focus when you listen to the number that you've given in some interviews in the last few days, that 1,000 people have joined the jobless queue every single day over the last 17 years in our country. I mean, that's how deep the crisis is. I mean, beyond the numbers, you come out very strongly calling for reforms. You want reforms to enable the economy to create jobs. Why do you think government is dragging its feet on much-needed reforms?
Well, good morning, Dan. That's a very big question. Why is the government dragging its feet? What we're calling for, let me clarify that. We're saying that it's time we take the catastrophic unemployment situation seriously. Most countries like ours, upper middle income countries, have about 60% of their workforce employed. South Africa is below 40% of our workforce who have jobs. In our view, that means 12.5 million people who want to work cannot find a job. We can't think of any crisis that is more important than dealing with this. And yet, the government's focus, and we saw this last week when the president, in his capacity as head of the ANC, told us his 10-point plan for growth and dealing with the economic emergency, he called it. He wants to massively scale up more public work schemes. And we're saying that's the wrong focus. Of course, we need some public works, and we will need them for quite some time. But what we desperately need are economic jobs, jobs that come out of growth. So the first thing we're saying is that growth, getting faster growth, is absolutely vital if we're going to deal with the jobs crisis. But the second thing we're saying, and we could do these things now, is that we need an economy that is much more labor absorbing, and that requires reforms to encourage employers to hire more people. So labor market reforms, we need to fix the skills system, which is a disaster. Of course, I'm not even talking about basic education, which is appalling. We need to create a much better environment for small firms that are more labor intensive in general, and we need to focus more attention on the informal sector and how we could get more jobs that way as well. But instead, the president wants to focus on more public employment programs, massively scaling up his presidential employment stimulus, but he never tells us where the money for that will come, and this is not the right approach for the country.
I mean, you make a point as well in your call that we must not romanticize the informal sector, but we must recognize its importance in terms of job creation.
Absolutely. Look, the nature of the informal sector is it's unregistered, that people have very precarious jobs. Can't imagine thinking of a career in the informal sector. Standards are probably not great at all. So we're saying, don't imagine this is better than it is. We should enable, in the context of a massive unemployment situation, we should enable more informal firms. We shouldn't harass them. We should take a different attitude to them. And we should increase urban density. If we can densify our urban areas more, the chances of informal firms getting more customers will be greater. So we're saying this is a part of why our unemployment is so high, but it's the most important thing is to get more people into formal sector economic jobs that are full-time. Most public employment schemes are part-time. Your job ends in 3 or 4 months, and then what? You're unemployed again. So we've got to get the economy growing. We must use informal sector, but mainly focus on growing a much more labor-absorbing economy.
Yeah, finally, you mentioned that there's a need for a skills overhaul. You don't really think the current SETA system is working?
Well, we don't know any analyst who isn't working in the SETA system who thinks that they're a success. We've done a lot of work on this. The SETAs are expensive. They were designed to deal with skills shortages, but they're not producing the people that employers want. We think you should scrap the SETAs altogether and use that 20 billion rand per annum in a different way. The TVETs, the colleges, are not performing well either. They're not linked to firms, and they're not producing graduates who firms want to hire. So a much closer relationship between the private sector and those TVET colleges, and a different funding system. We tend to fund them on the basis of how many people sit in the classroom. We should fund them on results. We should fund them on the quality of what they're doing, and a much closer relationship with trainers who understand business, so that we can be more effective. So these are things we could do now. There's nothing holding us back. At the same time, we've got to implement the many reforms required to make this a much more competitive economy.
Thank you very much. Ann Bernstein, Executive Director at the Center for Development and Enterprise. Indeed, Masiko, some of their suggestions don't have to wait for a job.